Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. My name is Keaton Shaw. It's a pleasure to be here with you once more in this seat, as this morning we will be discussing the mid-year budget review that was presented by Minister of Finance Colm Imbert in Parliament yesterday. Now, there is another topic that I hope we can touch on if we don't get the opportunity to do so today. Certainly tomorrow we will, and that is the Privy Council's ruling on the mandatory death penalty that is a part of our constitution. Now, it's very controversial, not only in terms of the opinions of the citizens. The law itself is actually chastised around the world, where many countries are no longer in favor of it. Now, also at the same time, you have to look at Trinidad and Tobago's position with the Caribbean Court of Justice, as well as its relationship with the Privy Council, because that also speaks a lot to how this ruling came about. And at the end of it all, ladies and gentlemen, the law is the law, and the law can be changed, but only by Parliament itself. The savings clause that is a part of the law and part of our 1976 Constitution allows for laws from the post-colonial era to be a part of today's modern constitution. Well, modern constitution it may be, but it has not been amended, the death penalty. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break here on the program, and when we're return, we will begin the discussions this morning on Talking Point. Stay tuned for the conversation.
North Coast Jazz 2022. Day 2, Event 2. The big day is Family Saturday. And the biggest stars are performing on festival grounds. Michelle Sylvester, Ruel Lynch, Patrick Gordon, Adam Hagley featuring Tony Paul, Leandra Head, Johan Chuckery, Sharon Phillips, Freetown Collective, powered by festival band Dean Williams and Company. Each master talent will perform a song from Lord Nelson's wide catalogue. Saturday, Family, May 28th. Together again. Festival grounds, Blanchisseurs. Family, a tribute to Lord Nelson. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2022. 3 days, 3 events, 3 experiences. Born here, laid here.
Get your tickets now at Crosby St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Sagre Grande, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Digicel Trend City and C3 Malls, and Digicel Head Office, 11C Maraval, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntix.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
People get confused, they go into the grocery and they're like, you know what, I want to change my life. And I want to eat better. As exciting as the front of a label looks, the back of the label is really where it's at. If something has less than 5% in that particular serving of that nutrient, then it's probably a low source. If it has 20 or more, then it's a high source.
Smoothies, I'm not really into that because the texture, or I don't like what people put in this, but the good thing about a smoothie is that you can make it your own. You can literally put whatever you want. If you really like bananas, you can put bananas. If you really don't like bananas, don't put bananas. Like, it's really that simple.
What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN Content Capital.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN. Alongside me this morning is my co-host, colleague, and my good friend, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton. And just another day in not so paradise, I guess. It's a strange dichotomy we live in, because I think people might want to scoff at what Minister Young said with regards to Trinbagonians having a nice life, but I think if you put things in perspective, relatively speaking, we do have a nice life. History is has endless amount of examples of nation states in various stages of failure and strife, and that's something that we have managed to avoid. Even some of our own neighbors have had to deal with significantly more hardships than us from various different things. With that said, I guess it makes the events of the last couple of months a bit of a challenge. And it's interesting to see how, as the events moves along, because you could argue that while we've been challenged before with economic hardship, maybe the combination of different factors are hitting us in a way that we haven't necessarily experienced before, right? And, technically speaking, as the days move on, it's always new history that we're making, right? It's always the next day. The future is not just a repeat of the past. But I feel as though now we are being tested in a different way, and we're having to answer some serious questions. We're revealing parts about our character. And the question is it that we don't necessarily like the solutions, or is it that we don't necessarily like what's being revealed about ourselves? So as much as people want to say blame X, blame Y, blame Z, at the end of the day, as we always say, we're one nation, and look at the entirety of our response to all of these challenges. Do we have an issue with how we overall respond? Because at the end of the day, a nation is not going to succeed or fall just based off of one group, one subgroup within it. It's going to succeed and fall together.
Well, quite a lot what you just mentioned, and rather heavy. I don't necessarily disagree with everything that you're saying. I do believe that whilst every day poses new challenges for us here in Trinidad and Tobago, and quite often it's very depressing to just speak and discuss current affairs and the latest happenings in our beloved Twin Island Republic. The reality of the situation is we are a lot better off than most places throughout the world. That being said, when you consider our situation down here, not all is rosy and merry as it seems. And that is where I will now actually transfer into our conversation about yesterday's presentation by the Minister of Finance in relation to our mid-year budget review. Now, it was positive news on the part of the Minister of Finance, who indicated that though the government had projected a deficit, they actually recorded a surplus. And the exact figure is just over $600 million, which is very good actually. However, bear in mind that Cabinet actually approved more money, roughly $3 billion more supplementary funding that was added and will be distributed to the various ministries. Now, whether or not this is something that is a constant recurrence, or if it's just that our projections in terms of our expenditure are always lower in terms of the estimate when budget is presented. Regardless of such, having a surplus at this particular point, whilst can be viewed as a positive, especially in how the minister communicated, it does not actually give the entire picture true meaning. What do I say by that? And this is where I'll actually bring in the opposition leader. And I think that she was quite accurate in questioning the government as exactly what will happen when oil prices drop again, because they are going to drop. Ladies and gentlemen, what we need to understand is that the surplus experienced is mostly due to increased taxation and royalties the government has experienced due to the increased price of oil and gas. Because at the same time, as I mentioned yesterday, we have not realized the volume of production to start actually experiencing significant returns. So while we're seeing a surplus, we're still spending $3 billion more. The Minister of Finance has also indicated that they will be making a great contribution, in which there'll be, a deposit, need I say, not a contribution, a deposit into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. Again, that is good news. But then, look through this. We've taken money out of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, I believe 3 times since 2019, if I'm not mistaken with my exact date, but I know we've taken it out 3 times. Exactly how much money are we going to deposit? The good news again is that the minister indicated that they are going to deposit it in US currency. But is that US currency going to be utilized in other ways? So we're putting it in now into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, but with about 8 months of cover in terms of foreign currency, is that then going to be taken back out? So the overall question is shown, and I don't know if you followed the debate yesterday in Parliament, with positive news and the positive rhetoric on the part of the Minister of Finance, I don't think it truly paints the picture, at least in my opinion, of our current situation and where we're at right now. I don't know if you share the same opinion.
I'm not too worried about oil reducing in price. I think one of the reasons why fossil fuel prices were reduced was because the shell game of marketing and perception, right? So there are a lot of politics. Politics is affecting a lot of industries now, much to the detriment of a lot of things. Hollywood, television, we're seeing companies basically fail over trying to develop new markets and new ad campaigns, new brand identities, and it's not working out as well as they expected it to, in part because I think people have forgotten that just because some people have ideological political values, that doesn't mean that they want it in their entertainment. Now, with regards to energy, we see politics with the debate on green energy. The problem is, I never truly understood why energy companies were so adamant to get this jump start into green when the technology hasn't really advanced. In some cases it has, but the areas that they were looking to focus on did not really advance. And at the end of the day, Germany was still going with Nord Stream 2. They were still relying on that to make up the energy shortfalls because of the variability of wind and solar, which I don't understand why most companies seem to be indexing heavily on that and not looking at other forms of green energy. So I thought it was a bit premature what some of these companies were doing. There's a lot of the developing world that still needed access to cheap energy that was complaining. Why is it that the first world gets to be rich off of cheap fossil fuels, and then when we are now trying to advance our economies, you're telling us, no, we can't do that because it's not good for the environment, and we have to suffer with high energy prices. So I think the war potentially caused a reset with regards to that momentum that the industry was moving towards less and less fossil fuels. And the way how Russia is acting, they could surprise us tomorrow and throw in the towel. But they seem to be, for the most part, very adamant on staying their course. And that course includes a sort of economic isolation. So while it's debated with regards to the oil embargoes to Russia right now, long term, I don't really see Russia playing nice and openly interacting with the global economy and for oil prices to stabilize and go down to what they were before. And then, of course, a lot of industries have to catch themselves. Demand for certain things is up. Like, the whole world economy has to rebalance. Maybe eventually oil prices go down. But within the relevant future, let's just say, 3 to 4 years, I'm not sure if we're going to see it go down to pre-pandemic levels where our budget situation was in problem. Because under 60, when it was like 50, 40, 20, then we were under real pressure. At around 60, 70, I think things are or at least manageable for us. And I think it'll take some time to get to that point before it could, before we should bother to consider things getting into the danger zone of $20 a barrel.
Now, the oil and gas market often fluctuates, and there are the factors that are external to Trinidad and Tobago that affect our current situation. Now, let's actually focus on some of the positives that was stated on the part of the Minister of Finance yesterday. He said that though they actually reported a deficit of 4.754 billion, and that is what they expected, they recorded a surplus of $654 million, some $5.4 billion higher than projected income in the first 6 months of the fiscal year. Now, you may be questioning, if there is a surplus of so much, how come there is actually higher projected income? And that's because of so many other factors, including expenses that the government has to have to run the country on a daily basis. Now, what he attributed to the surplus of higher than expected, the deficit, is that the receipt of taxes on incomes, on profits, are $3.2 billion. That is what he's indicated. So taxation as well as profits at $3.2 billion. It's also indicated, actually, ladies and gentlemen, that our oil and natural gas sector, the byproducts of natural gas and oil, such as petrochemicals, the prices around the world have exploded. And this was actually highlighted in last week's interview between Richard Quest and the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Stuart Young. Furthermore, he said taxes on goods and services brought an additional $117 million, and taxes from international trade, which are duty taxes, stood at $22 million. Non-tax revenue stood at $604 million. Now, one of the things that I've been looking at very closely and monitoring is our manufacturing sector. And as reported by Central Bank last week, our manufacturing sector has actually increased productivity, increased outputs, and therefore we are actually seeing an increase in revenues. But Sean, with all this good news, it does not necessarily, again, I mentioned there are external factors. It does not necessarily impact upon inflation, which the Minister of Finance didn't really report on yesterday. Mm-hmm. And that is another area of concern that I have. Again, I'm trying to be as reasonable as possible in expressing the external factors. But at the same time, I'm questioning, what are we doing internally to try and push back on some of those things? And one of the things that came to my mind last night, we should be producing certain goods. I don't want to necessarily get into the conversation of diversification, but we should be producing certain goods that we can use to feed our local market. And when I say goods, I don't mean goods that necessarily require the importation of raw materials to produce. I mean, we can produce the raw material down here. I don't think anything concrete was said yesterday in relation to stimulating the economy other than the focus on oil and gas. And that is a concern that I had since last year, and that is what we're seeing now. So though we can make the argument that the Russian-Ukrainian crisis is indeed a blessing to us in one way, it seems as though it's also having us in that mindset and mentality about not looking at investing in other areas, at least not seriously enough.
Well, so here's the problem with that, though. This is the catch-22. Now, ironically, is not the time to necessarily start new ventures when you have debt, when you have budget deficits, right? When you have social programs and transfers and subsidies that the population would loathe to get rid of, so you have to continue paying these recurring expenses. So yes, we could say we should invest in the future for diversification. The unfortunate problem with that is you don't see the yields until you reach the future. And we have costs now. So that's the catch. We have oil revenue to make now. In the short term, I do not have an issue with the government trying to maximize the oil revenue and minimize costs. An investment, while capital expenditure and it's preferential for development than just recurring expenditure. We can't just do it half-baked, try to rush into it. What if it fails, first of all? But more importantly, I think it's more important to wipe away these debts that we have while we have the money now. I mean, you have to, it's not too dissimilar to just how you manage a household. Yes, you might have a good opportunity or you might see a need for something, but if you still have loans to pay off, if you overextend yourself, you're not really doing much help to anybody. And I do feel that to some extent, certain government commitments basically was the government overextending itself, because ironically, the opposition leader asked what happens when the oil revenue goes down. Well, we got caught with transfers and subsidies for when oil revenue is high. And we already saw what happens when oil revenue goes down. Nobody wanted the government to remove the transfers and subsidies. So you're caught in a trap.
My friend, forgive me. I understand what you're saying in terms of the short-term outlook. I get that. I respect that for you. Could we afford to continue to have that mindset of only looking at the short term? Because whilst I understand the argument that you're making of take advantage of the opportunities right now, pay off the existing debt and the existing loans, which I agree that we need to do. At the same time, I also want to prevent us from having to take loans as great as we did in the past, the sheer amount, especially over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, because it is documented. Not saying that a COVID-19 pandemic is going to happen again anytime soon. You never know. It could, it couldn't, you know. But with the nature of these things, you cannot tell. However, I want us to prevent, I'm trying our very best to resist having to take loans again. And the thing is, if we're looking if we're constantly just in that mindset of, let's focus on the short term, what's going to happen overall?
No, but the difference is, this is not like before. Ironically, and people are going to want to say I'm being biased about this, but to hell with that. This is not like before when the PP had those high energy prices and maybe the PNB administration before that under Manning and so on. And you had those periods of times where it seemed as though each government was trying to outdo itself. I will do dollar for dollar for tertiary education. No, wait, GATE. Education is completely free at the tertiary level now. So that's nice and all. We're not talking about a windfall like that. We're not talking about the economy like that. We're talking about an economy that's in a recovery mode. So this is not the same type of decision that we've seen before. Let's be a little bit fair. The economy is trying to recover from a global pandemic of 2 years where a lot of the private sector was suppressed and certain industries weren't even able to earn income. Liquid cash was not able to circulate and generate wealth. Credit creation, all of those concepts just were half dead during 2 years. So it's not like before. We do have to consider, look, it's nice to want to do long-term plans. We're not going to realize those long-term plans if we put too much into those plans and we can't pay our debts now. And those debtors want their debts paid. If we default on those loans, then all of a sudden it's a hard time to get more loans in emergencies in the future. So the next pandemic, we ain't going to get loans.
So then let me ask you, because we have focused heavily on transfers and subsidies. So let me ask you, in your opinion, just with the argument that you're making.
No, well, also, but diversification. Yes, I want diversification
No,
too.
hold on, I understand, but I'm asking you, if you're making the argument that now is not necessarily the right time, you're not saying that we shouldn't do it at all. You're just saying, you're making the argument that now is not necessarily the right time. We should focus mostly on harvesting the best and reaping the best, considering the situation.
Or rather,
when is the right time? In your opinion, when is the right time?
We should not necessarily we shouldn't look at it as a zero-sum game. Oh no, they're only concentrated on oil. We should put some of this in. First of all, we kind of have to start from scratch if we want our economy to look differently. So we don't need to necessarily invest money into infrastructure now. What we should do is invest, which should cost less than the infrastructure. We should invest a little bit of money into proper planning now. So when we have the liquidity a bit freer, where we have more of a cushion, where we have actual money that is not necessarily earmarked, or we need to earmark it to something else that we have to pay off. When we have that freedom, we could then implement the plans that we've developed over time. Take the time now, because we are not going to get our agriculture-based industry, economy overnight. It's going to take some time. You know, we have to get yes, we have farmers now, but we're talking about a big shift. We're talking about the difference between our tourism now and Barbados tourism now.
So let me just...
Right? That's what we want out of tourism, agriculture, and a couple of other things.
Let me just flip that a little bit, because, again, you're bringing up topics of which we've discussed in the program before. So let's flip that a bit. Before this Russian-Ukrainian crisis, what were we focusing on? This is the argument I'm making. I'm not saying that we are...
Okay.
Hold on. I am not saying that we are overly consumed by the positives out of this war. I'm saying that it seems as though before the war, when we were having conversations about, let us look at a timber and logging industry, let us look at other products that we can manufacture down here, let's look at a food manufacturing and processing plant. I'm saying when you take a look at what's transpired since around February, March, and we've seemed to have blindsided that. So, in the instances, let's say this war did not happen, because now we're talking about what ifs. It has happened. Let's say that it did not happen. Where would we be now in terms of your argument, in terms of paying off debt, in terms of where we're getting our revenues from? My concern is at the end of the day, kudos. We're doing good in terms of, okay, greater income. My concern is with that greater income, in putting everything behind us in terms of that timber and logging industry, that food manufacturing and processing plant, and that packaging plant, and so on and so forth. Are we now falling for the same mistakes of which we practiced in the past? Are we now stating that, you know what, okay, let's pause on that for now, and when that time comes, because it will come again, Sean, that we're catching ourselves to pay back these loans, that we may have to take loans to pay back loans? When are we going to make the argument that maybe we should have done this then?
You seem to be forgetting two things. One, even when we spoke about diversification in the past, we acknowledged that in the short run, it's not going to necessarily earn us revenue. And we need some revenue from the energy sector. That's point number one. Point number two, the reason why we looked at diversification was because we had a long-term revenue problem. And I'm not saying, again, we put all our eggs in the basket long-term into energy, right? But we were looking to, we were trying to find different avenues that the country could earn revenue. That's what we were examining. Different industries. What was the potential because energy was failing? That was why we needed diversification, for revenue. Energy is now going to provide us revenue. The resources are there. It's not as though we could sit on oil and gas and 10,000 years down the line, when we're ready, we could sell it off if we need to. That's not how this is going to work. Eventually, it's going to be worthless. Somebody's going to have a little bit of oil and gas left at the end, and we're going to move on to something else, and then it's not going to be worth anything. That's how raw materials work sometimes. So the why was revenue. We're getting revenue now in the short term. Again, it goes back to the long term. So what's the time frame? First of all, when we could get our debt down back to pre-pandemic levels, that's one point we could consider. When we could pay off our pandemic loans, that's another point we could consider. When the GDP is back up to pre-pandemic levels, right? So, and that includes an energy sector, a petrochemical sector that was dealing with reduced prices back in 2019, early 2020, where the price of oil was $70 a barrel. So we're basing it off of a GDP that should not be highly affected or skewed rather in a strange way by oil and gas. So that is probably different areas where we could look to now start to shift the focus of our capital expenditure. But we had a revenue problem, we had a foreign exchange problem. That's the other thing about diversification, right? Energy, oil and gas was not giving us foreign exchange that we needed, that we grew accustomed to. So again, we were trying to figure out where could we find solutions to that problem, realizing that none of them were going to be solutions short term, none of them. So now we have, yes, we are lucky. Let's just say what it is. Luck. It's pure dumb luck and stubbornness perhaps on the part of the government. But we're lucky. We should use that now to pay off our debts, stabilize our economy. Notice what I'm saying. And again, this is not like what it was before, When we had, we should build up the waterfront and we should build this airport and we should do this project on sport. Yeah, let's throw millions of dollars behind sport, TT, and all of that madness. No.
I think, ladies and gentlemen, as we pause in this conversation for now, because we will welcome our Tuesday commentator very shortly. Sean, I hear you. I'm not necessarily arguing what you're saying. I also believe, at least in my opinion, just to add to what you're saying, is that some of the surplus of revenue, whilst we should be paying off our debts and our loans, at the same time, some of that money needs to go in investing in future sectors of which we have not realized full potential as yet, sectors of which it's not necessarily reliant on energy and the energy industry in order for it to thrive. So that is my standpoint. Again, good news, yes, pure dumb luck, sheer luck, honestly. And you're right in making the argument. Patrick Manning, under his leadership, Trinidad and Tobago experienced a boom. The People's Partnership, they experienced good revenue as well, although over the years it was decreasing. This government has not experienced the same thing. At the end of it all, that is where governance comes into play. And my argument is that I don't think that we've had any sort of forward-thinking individuals to look at investing in other opportunities and other sub-economies. And that is why I'm making the argument, whilst we have positive revenue, pay off some debt, make payments towards the debt, but also start implementing from now, because you said it's not going to happen overnight. You have to start from now. And that is what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen. The good news that I heard yesterday from the Minister of Finance, I only hope to keep hearing for years to come.
Keaton, if the government said they're implementing diversification now, I'd be so worried, because that sounds like half-baked ideas to me.
Well,
you can't just... You
can't just come Sean, you can't just come and say, okay, we're implementing diversification. You can't just come and say something like that.
And that's my point. What do we want? If we really want a diversification from this budget, to some extent, it's unrealistic that they're just going to flip that switch so soon. Again, they could have mentioned initiatives and plans for the long term, but
which was not mentioned.
That's outside of the budget.
Which was not mentioned.
This is the mid-year budget review, not the Vision 2040.
Again, I hear you, my friend. Different opinions. But that's the good thing, ladies and gentlemen. That is why we have these conversations. That is why we have these debates. And the lucky thing is, you get to contribute as well to the program after the 9 o'clock news. For now, we're going to pause on this conversation. When we return, we welcome our Tuesday commentator, former youth parliamentarian Camille Pascal, to give his opinion and his thoughts on yesterday's presentation. Stay tuned.
North Coast Jazz 2022. After Family Saturday, the sky ignites with Blue Sunday, where Juve meets Pan meets soca. Juve meets Pan meets soca. A Juve experience featuring Hadco's Phase 2 Pan Groove, Mixmaster DJs and powerful soca. Witness the expression of a new-found freedom with paint and vibes. Dance along to the music of our national instrument. Blue Sunday. Blue Sunday. A colorful experience, a tradition you won't want to miss.
Looking for somebody to jam with me and have some fun. Juve.
Sunday, May 29th, Festival Grounds, Blanchisseuse. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival 2022. 3 days, 3 events, 3 experiences. Born here, played here.
Get your tickets now at Crosby St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Sangre Grande, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Digicel Trend City and C3 Malls, and Digicel Head Office, 11C Maraval, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntix.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516.
As a mother, convenience is a gift. With so many things to juggle every day, I need ease when doing business. Thanks to eyewearsolutions.com, I can order my contact lenses, solutions, and even sunglasses all on the go. Registering and ordering are easy. Plus, I get delivery right at my door or collect in-store if I choose. eyewearsolutions.com. Now that's convenience in a click. Visit eyewearsolutions.com today and enjoy 15% off your first purchase of contact lenses.
Is it politics? What is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Gift giving during a lockdown can still be hassle-free with a gift from FanZone with delivery options available nationwide. Visit and browse our Facebook and Instagram pages for all your official licensed merchandise and apparel and have it delivered to your door. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. FanZone, we've got you covered.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back to Talking Points. I always make the argument, Sean, and I think you would agree with me here, that off air we seem to have a lot more. We add to the conversation a lot more, especially when we're joined by our commentators. And funny enough, that's just exactly what happened. Kemuel Pascal, former youth parliamentarian, is with us via Zoom this morning. Good morning, Kemuel.
Good morning, Keaton, and good morning to Sean as well. Good morning to all your viewers and listeners. It is my pleasure to be here.
Well, Sean and I actually just had a debate just before you joined us. So we were going back and forth about yesterday's presentation. Now, we all understand it's a mid-year review as to our current financial standings, but we have various opinions as to the actual presentation, what was said on the part of the government in terms of intentions or in terms of where we're going and what we're doing and where we're at. And I'm going to now ask you to give us your opinion and your thoughts on what was presented yesterday by Minister of Finance, Colm Imbert.
Sure. So what we would have seen is a $3,081,703,000 further appropriation of funds. And I would have noted certain things which the minister would have said. He said it was needed to fund recurrent expenditure, that critical capital expenditure. He said the funds will be sourced from the consolidated funds and borrowing at some point. But really and truly, what we got yesterday was essentially a scenario of balance in the books, because it was essentially ministries asking for more funds and the funds being appropriated. Now, he would have stated the funds would have really been sourced from the fact that the price of oil and gas has now gone up due to the situation that we are faced with in Ukraine. But the question that everyone is asking, what happens after that? You have stated that you would have initially, for the first 6 months of the fiscal year, you would have had to have that's what the minister stated. He stated that the overall deficit would have been at $4.74 billion. However, they have seen a surplus of over $600 million. To me, that's no cause for surprise or for us to celebrate, I should say. It really isn't anything that we should be grateful for. It's a matter of us understanding where we are going in the future now. So a lot of things to unpack from what you would have said.
My only thing, Camille, though, and this is what I don't understand, to what extent, because when we ask about, so what happens after, this is the mid-year budget review. So why are we expecting long-term forecasts and planning from this? This is not even a budget presentation or annual review. This is just the halfway point of how to finish off the year. So I myself am wondering, are we being kind of caught up in what little arguments could be scraped together left? I think the main thing, from what I gather, is not so much what about the future, because long-term plans are not going to solve our short-term revenue problems now. I think the main thing to be argued is what about just the details and the reportings of what's currently happening, and to make sure that the situation is clear. That's the one thing with the Minister of Finance that I don't necessarily appreciate. He kind of just feeds us what he thinks is good news to kind of appease the people.
Exactly, and that is so because if you looked at his presentation, you would have seen the part of his presentation, majority of his presentation was spent on outlining where we have given this ministry this amount of money, this state enterprise or the judiciary needs this amount, or this RJ needs this amount of money. However, when you look at the aspect of the economic performance, he didn't spend much time in it. And in fact, majority of his time was spent on responding to detractors. He started off by stating that the current people who write in the newspapers, the ones who speak on television, they are essentially, they have not used, or he hasn't seen anyone using data that is provided by the CSO to back up their findings, and he doesn't like the fact that they are doing that. So essentially what we saw was really the minister attempted to balance both, and the opposition made the point that what he did is a lot of the expenditure was for recurrent stuff, and they were also making the point that if you would have done a budget back in October 2021, why didn't you anticipate that we would need these amount of recurrent expenditure things that are always recurring bills?
Exactly.
Constant that need to be paid. So why are you now coming at the midterm to ask for more money or to appropriate more money towards these ministries?
Well, hold on, Sean. And Camille, this is also a point that I was making early in the conversation, because this is not anything new. You often go to the Standing Finance Committee when you need more funds, but $3 billion is a lot of money, especially under the bracket of recurrent expenditure. And that is why I was wondering whether or not, was it that we underestimated, was it an underestimate in our budget, or is it just because of what we're experiencing now? And especially since the economy is now starting to open up a bit more.
What did I say yesterday? I said that, yes, there are going to be things that they will report that is part of a deficit. And then there will be other things that ministries aren't paying off or can't pay that they're trying to not talk about. So this is not a surprise to me. I'm not necessarily sure why it's a surprise to other people, because there's way too many reports of way too many ministries and government entities that have debts and can't pay off their creditors. To me, it actually makes sense. Unfortunately, it's just a reality maybe that they managed to hide from the population.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Camille,
go ahead.
Yeah. What I think is it's over $3 billion, but essentially he stated that 1.6 out of the $3 billion will be used to pay off VAT refunds, and they have increased the quantum of VAT refunds as a result of increased revenue from higher oil and gas prices. So it's a matter of, I think this is something good for the business sector, I guess, because obviously funds, this has been a long-standing issue where businesses can't get their VAT refund. So I guess that's something for us. I guess we can probably celebrate in that instance. But on one hand, people may say we can't celebrate when the people are essentially owe their money from long time.
Well, Camille, that's another point. I mean, business owners have actually expressed their gratitude and relief that they'll be experiencing this once they experience it promptly and on time. I've often made the argument I don't think businesses are very much concerned with expanding right now, but rather sustaining what already exists. With this money that they're about to receive, whether or not it's going to be reinvested back into the business or to pay off debts that they may have occurred, we don't know.
Some businesses expanded, just remember that.
What are those businesses? I made the argument, certain businesses that are franchises expanded, while a lot of other businesses closed down. But if the Minister of Finance is making the argument that we should use the CSO does not often update their website. Like, for example, we had the mid-year budget review yesterday, right? Yesterday, for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. But the latest data in relation to our unemployment rate from the CSO is 2020. Now, make the argument that's a year and a half ago, but at the same time, in a mid-year budget review, considering where we were at, and now that we've finally opened up and things are picking back up, slowly, but picking back up, all of this is information and data that could be provided so that the minister doesn't often have to go to try and rebuttal his detractors. Provide us with the information. Provide us with the updated information. And that's what I'm saying. So I get Sean's argument that it's a budget review, a mid-year budget review for the fiscal year 2021-2022. My concern is with all this positive news, is it that it's overshadowing or trying to, put darkness upon the realities of the situation here in Trinidad? Is it just to put a smile on our face? Because
yes, but a smile for what exactly? Because, he did know that they intend to, whatever revenues they get from the oil and the increased price of oil and gas, they would use that to fund the current wage negotiations that will probably eventually be settled at some point. But I don't even think it's cause for us to celebrate, again, because of what would have been appropriated yesterday. The funds that would have been appropriated are not for anything that would tell us this is the direction that we intend to go. This is a new investment that we intend to have. And if you look back at the last 7 years, obviously, when they are now in their second term, you would have seen that they would have promised a lot of projects, a lot of collaboration with foreign through foreign direct investment. However, some of these things that they would have mentioned, you haven't seen as yet, and we're now in 2022.
Well, so again, I would caution, some of those things might be impractical right now because of the pandemic, unfortunately. I think at the end of the day, this is not the time to ask the government about long-term intentions. As much as they could have given us a little nugget on something just to kind of give us reassurance that we head on the right track so that we could we could see what they're thinking. I think the main thing is to ask the government with regards to their expenditures on their various projects, how those things are going. The current situation, the current accounts, I guess you could say. One of the things is transfers and subsidies. I think and economists have brought this up over the last few months. These are things that need to be looked into no matter how unpopular they are with the population. But other things like projects like the airport in Tobago, I'm going to be a recurring decimal and bring it up again. I don't care. It's $1.2 billion, and I really don't see the need for it right now when there's a lot of greater needs elsewhere. We can't even stabilize our situation with schools and figure out a way to properly get, to balance that equation of getting enough financial resources to the entities responsible for constructing and maintaining schools.
All right. Well, I do get that, but I do think that the airport in Tobago is needed at this point, the expansion, I just say, of the airport. So I wouldn't necessarily take away from that. What I do think is that if they are needs in other sectors, then the government, they are the ones in charge. They need to appropriate the monies accordingly towards those particular sectors, and they need to work out their mechanisms of the money actually reaching towards the end user, being the citizens or being the schools or whichever special purpose companies. So that's what I think.
The other aspect,
the implication is of corruption, but
the other aspect of this, of which I did not hear too much of, and gentlemen, if you all heard anything, correct me right now. I'm live on air. I try to do all the research before I get on air, and I'm wondering if I missed this, or if I just didn't hear it at all from the minister. Is what was promised in the budget last year in terms of the projects that, especially in relation to, let's use one example with agriculture, and especially pumping money into the various farms that they were looking at. That's just one example. But the measures that they wanted to implement, or the intended measures, did we get any updates yesterday as to where we're at with those certain policies and projects that they wanted to implement?
I think the irony is, the more they tell us things and then don't implement it, the more they decide, well, it's best if we don't tell them of our future plans in case they don't come to fruition. Some of that is fair in the sense of it's out of their control. Some of that is within their control, and, you know, they don't want to be reminded and be held to account. Camille?
Yes, well, I mean, that's one factor. They probably may not tell us because they don't think it would come into play or into fruition at this point in time. But it's still important to let the country know, let people be aware, because when you leave room, when people don't know, you essentially leave room for speculation. And that's why, as Keaton was mentioning before, if the CSO can't provide us with statistics, the economists and the ones who are columnists and everything who speak on television, they would essentially use figures that they would have gotten from whatever figures are available. But because you don't have a well-functioning statistical office that can actually give us the numbers in real time, people speculate.
I wonder if the minister had a Freudian slip and he doesn't realize it's not that we don't use the most up-to-date numbers, it's that compared to him, we probably don't have access to the numbers he's using.
I certainly don't have access to the numbers that he's
That's what I
using.
suspect. I don't know for sure. Next thing you know, he's using 2020 numbers and we really are body part backwards in this country.
And I certainly, as I said, I certainly look for the most updated information on the part of the government. But gentlemen, this is what I said before we welcome Camille. The good part about having these discussions is that we have various opinions. It allows for debate. And I'm hoping that after the 9 o'clock news, you, the callers, will call in and give us your opinion as well. Not only from the perspective of, yesterday's conversation, but tell us this morning, do you agree with what Camille was saying? Do you agree with what Keaton is saying, what Sean was saying? Or do you disagree? Or is it that you agree with some or disagree with some? This is the conversations that we need to have, ladies and gentlemen, in order to continue the progression. If we've even started progressing. Yes, good news, but it's, as mentioned by my co-host, it's sheer luck. Camille, just before we break for the news, I'm going to give you the opportunity to conclude the conversation.
Sure. What I would like is for the minister to further clarify and actually tell us what are some of his plans for the future. I mean, Sean may disagree with me in this instance, and let us know what do you intend for the next 6 months of the fiscal year, and how do you propose, as you mentioned, to fund the 2023 budget.
And I agree with you. I am, again, Minister of Finance, where are you in relation to the 300 stimulus package for to boost the farming industry, the 600 more hotel rooms that where are we at with that? Because that's not only government, that's private as well. But is there public-private partnerships in relation to that? Food inflation to decline to pre-pandemic levels. This is what he argued. But bear in mind, we have the Russian-Ukrainian crisis, and that is external. We are also looking at restructuring and expanding TTMF, the whole mortgage bank. Where are we on that? So all these things announced from last year, we need an update on that as well. We don't just need the good news in terms of, listen, oil and gas is doing well right now, so we can put a smile on our face. We need updates on the measures that you intended and where we're at with it. Ladies and gentlemen, we break for news on the hour, and when we return, the phone lines are open.
Join the journey to the Northern Range. Come, sing the chorus. Family, a tribute to Lord Nelson.
So we holding on, going from dusk to dawn.
North Coast Jazz, born here, played here.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Don't keep yourself handcuffed. We continue to receive calls from members of the viewing public whose cable provider is Flow and cannot receive WESN. We advise that you unfortunately reside on the original Flow platform. If you wish to receive WESN's high-quality programming, you must contact Flow to be upgraded to the new Flow Evo platform. Call Flow now and demand your upgrade.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
North Coast Jazz 2022. You asked for it. Consider it done. Park in comfort at the Queen's Park Savannah and ride in style to festival grounds for the biggest family event. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Park, ride, enjoy. It's all about family. Family Saturday, May 28th. Together again. Festival grounds, Blanchishers. Family. A tribute to Lord Nelson. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby, St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Extra Foods Sagre Grande, Digicel, Trin City and Gulf City Malls, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntix.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516.
Welcome back to Talking Point. Wow, the conversation really expanded, ladies and gentlemen, off air. I know I keep saying that, and I know, you may be getting very upset with me saying, oh God, Keaton, well, what's the point of you going to news? Or Keaton, what's the point of you saying that? But our minds go a million beats per minute, and there's so many thoughts, and we need to sometimes just discuss it to get it out and to get various opinions and views. That's what we're going to do this morning. Kemuel is with us via Zoom. Kemuel, thank you for staying with us. Sean is in studio. The numbers now, ladies and gentlemen, are up on your screen: 623-9376, 622-9338. Call in and join us on Talking Point this morning. What are your thoughts and what are your opinions? Please be respectful of time in making your points as well. Good morning, caller from Diego Martin.
Good morning, Mr. Shah and Mr. Paul.
Morning.
I want to talk about the press, and particularly apparently is the number one daily newspaper on an article with respect to abuse of children that was recently done on a front page, I believe on Sunday.
Yes.
Trying to allude to the abuse of children in 1997. I thought the piece was unbalanced, trying to push blame back in time as opposed to what is happening now with the Children's Authority. And that is not balanced. What I am seeing coming out of all of that, the chairman of that committee has pronounced on what and where it was. And he alluded to the fact that these things were happening prior to the 1995 administration. And he identified two high-ranking PNM. So with respect to the chambers, what I want to fast forward now and to put it in the public space now, because the Prime Minister alluded to advising, I don't believe he instructed the Commissioner of Police to go and find that report. That report, because the chairman talking all over the place about it already. I want him to instruct the Commissioner of Police to investigate who is culpable for the murder of the two boys who were in the care of the Children's Authority, because there's other information coming out that one of the persons who went to the Jones Commissioner indicated that the boys were being pimped and they were killed because of that. And if we want to think outside the box, the boys work in communication with social media regularly, so they could have possibly put into the public domain who are abusing them. They say people dressed like police kill them. You understand? Remember the Children's Authority manager called a gang leader to ask for advice. That is frightening. Why didn't she go to the police? Is the escape of the child facilitated because they knew the children wanted to escape because of abuse? Did they allow it?
All right, caller.
Things like that.
All right, caller. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, caller. That was some heavy stuff there too.
But caller, here's where I will disagree with you, where you said that the commentary sounded biased because they was trying to allude back in 1997, and you want them to focus now on the shortcomings of the Children's Authority. I disagree with you, because if a report existed since 1997, and the report documented before 1995 we were seeing abuse taking place, then all governments, past and the government present, need to be investigated, because that report was ignored. That report was ignored, and this is prior to the Children's Authority. So if we establish a Children's Authority whilst this report existed, what was the point and purpose in saying that the Children's Authority has a statutory mandate but was not following it? Was that implemented? So I hear you. You made a lot of very valuable points, but at the same time, we cannot ignore 1997. We can't just put it behind us because a new report has come out, the Jones report, and it falls under a particular government. Then that is where we are wrong, and that is where we are biased. Understand where I'm coming from, caller. Kemuel, the Prime Minister, in his post to social media, indicated that he was very upset with what he was reading. He said Judith Jones tried to get a copy, the committee tried to get a copy of the 1997 Robert Sabger report. They were not able to get a copy of that report. They couldn't find a copy of it anyway. Yet somehow a daily newspaper was able to get a copy of that report. And the chairman of that committee at the time also has spoken about it. So I'm finding it very hard to believe that the Justice Judith Jones Committee could not get a copy of that report.
Correct. That's unbelievable. Almost, or probably didn't try hard enough to get a copy of the report. They probably attempted to, but they probably didn't go this step, in terms of continuing in their search for the report. But I'm sure the report was available. If a newspaper can get the report, I don't think it's that they would have, possibly they would have kept the report from since back then. But what I'm saying is that those things are contained within ministries. Those are things that you just don't throw away.
At the same time, I'm wondering if they actually made an effort in going to the chairman of that committee to even discuss it, because the Prime Minister is making the argument that that committee couldn't get a copy of the report, though they tried to, but he's calling on the Commissioner of Police to now get a copy of the report. So again, the media in Trinidad and Tobago is playing a role in their instance of being a fourth estate, and I can only hope they keep it up. My concern is that sometimes we sensationalize things too much to sell, and our reporting could be poor. But in this instance, it's a positive.
My concern is, show me the investigation that cracked open a major case, a major controversial case. A year ago, there's an investigation into 2 men's deaths. Anything came from it? Not really anything. Andrew Morris and Joel Balcon. Were they guilty? We don't know. Did they deserve to die? We don't know. We don't know because we can't try them because they died in police custody. A Venezuelan baby was shot. Anything from that? We don't know. So now calling for an investigation. And this is my problem. I'm not mad at you, caller. I'm mad at what's going on. Because the reasonable thing to do is to call for investigations into these things. But how many times do we actually get suitable results? Look how long it's taken, because just to try to figure out what happened at Paria. They haven't even started yet. I think the technical people might have unofficially started, but the Commission of Inquiry hasn't even started yet. How long are we going to have to wait on that? But at least there's a little bit of hope to get some answers, right?
Sean, I would say this. Let it not be lost upon us that there's still a report that stands at present that was kept by the Office of the Prime Minister for over 4 months, almost 5 months, involving the abuse of children who are former residents and current residents. And let us not find ourselves speaking about a report from 1997, so much so that we lose our focus on what is before us right now. So I really do think that the authorities need to act with haste right now and fix the issues, because I'm sure those issues are some of the same issues that are contained within the Judith Jones report.
Very much so. The Justice Judith Jones report probably just concretizes the Robert Sagwa report even further. And again, we speak about negligence within the homes itself and abuse, but then governments past and present, is it negligence on their part that they just sat on these reports? We knew this was happening. We knew this was happening. You have a caller now with us from Chaguanas. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Time for spitting in the wind again. You keep talking about shortage of revenue. And I have repeatedly pointed out that we have no shortage of revenue in Trinidad. The problem is the government makes no attempt to collect the revenue. And one of the big problems, the government went into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund under false premises. You cannot refuse to collect your revenue and then claim there is a shortage. Right? And we have to get to the core of these problems. At the core of these problems, these things happen because we have no administrative report. Your colleague, who I don't think is here this morning, have repeatedly said that she had prepared the property tax roll and it was ready to go as was share. And now, almost 10 years after, the government making all kind of nonsensical statements. How could you implement part of the role What happened to the other people? They wouldn't pay taxes. And what is the consequence on sewer and water rates, which supposed, according to law, to be based on those annual reports? The people who would not assess at this point in time, in this two-thirds or whatever it is, will they be exempt? And nobody, the minister is not addressing these problems, and I hear nobody addressing them. Before I close up, as usual, any questions?
None on my part. Thank you very much. I don't know, Sean, if you have a question for the professor.
No, I guess now the question is, yes, to what extent do they not have annual reports? And if certain functions, of course, are based on the reports and they are not doing the reports properly, is it that they're not doing the reports properly, so they don't report them fully, or is it that they have found a workaround? Either way, it leaves a lot of questions, and we're left with not a lot of answers. But that's just one.
Thank you, Professor.
That's just one other issue, because he does have a point. While I don't know if I would agree with him that the revenue that is not collected in taxes would cover the deficits, I do agree with him that no matter how much it might be, the government cannot complain, hey, we need more revenue, and they're not necessarily collecting their revenue or doing what they're supposed to be doing to collect it properly.
Kevin, let me just ask your opinion in relation to the property tax. Do you think that it should focus more on commercial properties rather than residential properties? Or is it that the government doesn't want to put any further strains on businesses at this particular point in time? But then at the same time, where you have households that are not receiving income as they were before, that's putting a strain as well. So is it that we're looking at the lesser of the two evils, or is it that property tax is not necessary at this point in time? I don't know what's your opinion on the whole issue.
Well, I do think property tax is necessary. Obviously, it was shelved at one point in time. The government attempted to do it. It was challenged by the opposition in court. And now they are at the stage where they can actually begin to do it. But what I do think more importantly is it would go hand in hand, has to go hand in hand with the reform of local government, which is what they are presently attempting to implement as the bill is currently before the House of Representatives. And considering that this year we are supposed to go to the polls in relation to local government.
The concern, though, is that the Minister of Finance will still have overarching view in relation to funding for local government. It doesn't fall under the remit of the Minister of Local Government. So there is a bit of concern there in itself, where the collection of property tax, exactly if what they're receiving is what is going to local government. We have a caller on the line with us from Chaguanas. Good morning, caller. Please turn the volume down on your... Good morning. Just kindly turn the volume down on your television.
Sorry. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Right. I am looking at this with $100 million allocated to form a road company.
That has no board members or is not even registered as yet.
Yeah, the problem is bigger than that. No, it seems like nobody has given consideration to what is the recurrent expenditure to establish this company. Mm-hmm. The recurrent expenditure to run a road company could run well into about $50 million. Mm-hmm. The next $50 million, when you put at 20% for backdoor arrangements, that leaves you very little money to actually do road repairs. I believe that somewhere along the line that should be halted immediately and placed back under the Ministry of Works, where they have current establishments if they want to spend $100 million on roads. And then a target should be set, $1 million a mile or something to do some kind of repair or something, and say 100 kilometers of road or something so will be done. And this 100 kilometers will be distributed to areas, and the areas should be named and stated. The problem we have is when somebody goes before Parliament and says that the ministry is working and they will decide what is necessary as it comes up. There's nowhere anybody can know what is going to be done and what will be done. So when you see something being done, you don't know what is happening in the back door.
Caller, you make a very good point. Thank you very much for your contribution this morning. We do have other callers on the line. But I'm wondering now, this secondary road rehabilitation program, this new entity, What happened to PURE, the program for upgrading road efficiency? They already exist, by the way, an entity under the Ministry of Local Government to upgrade and ensure the upkeep of roads in Trinidad and Tobago. So I'm wondering, what's the point of this, Camille?
This is purely for election purposes. Purely.
It would help.
Perhaps.
Successive governments need to realize that they kind of setting themselves up. All of these companies just look like election gimmicks or corruption gimmicks. Either or.
Camille, pause on that. I'm coming back to you because I agree with you. We seem to forget local government elections are due this year. But we have a caller now with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You know, you all listened to the discussion this morning, and you know, every government, barring the A.N.R. Robinson government and the Pandey government has had windfalls in this country. It came, however it came. All of them had windfalls.
Yeah.
And if you look at trying to diversify the economy, I mean, I've taken a different stand this morning.
Please do.
If you look at the trying to diversify the economy, from Eric Williams times, from Dr. Eric Williams administration come up, everybody has done something. Eric Williams put education in place, tried to expand it, and there was something done by everybody. You know who has been falling short? We, the people. And I'm serious about that. After spending almost $8 billion on GATE, where are we in terms of our diversification? People got education, they got the opportunity, and what they did. And we have to take a critical look at ourselves and understand that we blame the government, and they have a share amount of blame to be handed to them, but we are falling short. We are falling short, gentlemen.
Caller, before you go, I'm sorry to cut you. I champion what you're saying this morning. I've often, on this program, also indicated that, yes, we do criticize the government, but in criticizing the government, we often forget that we are citizens of Trinidad and Tobago as well. We also forget that we have a role to play. You know, so exactly what you're saying, I champion it, and I agree with you 100%. We share part of the blame as well.
And let me say one thing before you go, Keaton. You see three of you all there? That is change. That is the change. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank
caller.
you.
Have a good day, caller.
Yeah, I agree with that.
No, but the call is right, because in my experience, Kevin, I want to come back to the point you were making, but I do remember when I was attending university, many a times I saw students, and we were fully funded by GATE, right? Essentially, students will come to school. They might fail their exam. Who cares? I get one more chance to repeat it. I failed that exam as well. Well, I have to come out of this program. But next year, I could go into this program. And that was an issue that the university as well as GATE was experiencing. We're constantly funding programs for students who, I don't know if they didn't take it seriously enough. They had the opportunity, but they were failing and falling out of that program, going into another program. I know one student in particular who entered 8 different degrees and never graduated with one of them. All of that funded by GATE. So that's just an example, ladies and gentlemen, that the caller from San Fernando was making. Call on the line with us from Tunapuna. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah. I would like to find out from the Minister of Finance about the $1.5 billion in tax reform. I want a breakdown as to who are going to benefit from this tax reform. I want to know how, if any of the businessmen who business are closed and cannot open back, are they going to be part of this 1.5 billion? And I also want to know a breakdown. According to you all gentlemen, the CSO would have supposed to give us that. I want a breakdown as to who are going to benefit from this $1.5 billion. Because there are a lot of businesses that has been closed because of this arrogant Minister of Finance in the past.
Thank you very much, caller.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller.
Now, the caller does raise one particular point, which is scratching my mind right now, and that is, could you make the argument that a business that closed down during the pandemic or let's say within the last fiscal year, is entitled to tax refunds?
There's a lot of questions there. I think at the end of the day, we do have to ask to what extent is the government really, like they will talk the talk and they'll make the big decisions, but it's the implementation. So with the grants, with the loans, we've seen the problems accessing them over the course of the pandemic. Now with the tax returns, you know, is it that they're making it difficult, or is it that the systems are just so inept that they are difficult?
Camille, I'm coming back to your point now in relation to, well, it's purely an election gimmick. $100 million, a very nice round figure. Again, it seems as though they're spewing that out into the public without any sort of realization of exactly which ministry is going to fall under. The Prime Minister is in charge of that, and we're not entirely sure. Go on, Camille.
They stated that it's going to actually fall under the Ministry of Local Government.
The Minister of Finance made that is what I was reading in the article, but then the Minister of Finance said, well, the Prime Minister is yet to actually finally decide on that.
During the Senate Finance Committee, they did say it on Friday, because it was asked, listen, we did checks, there's no company registered under that name in the company's registry, and so where is this company going to fall under, or who rather, if you are allocating any money now for a company that hasn't even been set up, why are you allocating money? What you are doing is illegal, but that's what was stated. But they did eventually state that the company is actually falling under the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government.
So then, Camille, okay, so that's set in stone, right? But as you mentioned there, nobody's there, company's not registered, we're not entirely sure the intended purpose is there, but if you're pumping $100 million, exactly who or what are you financing?
Well, they've said road. They said secondary road company. I think it's the name of the company, secondary road repair or improvement, whatever company. But I think it's ultimately for election purposes. We are expecting local government elections come probably the first Monday in December, and it's essentially that. It's that for local government purposes.
Camille, I really hope that you can join us again on the program very soon. Not next week Tuesday. I hope before next week Tuesday. There's a lot more to discuss, but we're going to have to end it there for now. Sean Michael Small, thank you very much. Closing remarks?
I'll just say a couple of things. One, I think the opposition for this debate really added nothing useful and didn't really take the Minister of Finance to task where I thought he should have been taken. Spreadsheets are used in accounting, opposition leader. So that statement just made no sense to me. With regards to local government elections, I do think, though, now that, yes, the PNM is really taking a push. Maybe this is part of the Minister of Local Government. I don't know if you could say penance, but regardless, it's like, listen, prove yourself here, right? It was AG, things were working out, prove yourself. He is pushing for it. Maybe that's not the intention. Maybe he is turning it into that intention, but he is pushing for it. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing right now.
Camille, thank you very much for your time, my friend. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to end it there because we don't have any more time. But interestingly, it's going to be this election is, we always say this election is going to be so important and whatnot, particularly more so for the government. We saw what happened in the last general election. And they retained government, and we saw what happened in Tobago. If the PNM falls short in this local government election, it speaks volumes as to where we're heading. And I'm not even focusing on the opposition. I don't have time to waste right now. But as we conclude, thank you very much to all our callers, ladies and gentlemen. Today's a good day to have a good day. Be your brother's keeper, and at the end of it all, as the caller from San Fernando indicated, we are all citizens and we all have roles to play for Trinidad and Tobago as a whole. This is our country. God bless you all, and hopefully we see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.